There are many things I wanted to do in my life, and flying an airplane was always one of them. Microsoft's Flight Simulator 2020, a HOTAS, and a VR headset lets me get as close as I possibly can to the real thing. I've had VR for over a year now, and I am still blown away with how VR can convince me I am in a completely different world, or in this case, here on Earth, soaring the skies. If you love the thought of flight and have a VR headset with a HOTAS, then you already have the perfect setup to simulate flight. That being said, Microsoft's Flight Simulator does take an absolute beast of a computer to run, and while I have a PC with decent specs, I still cannot play it in VR without having to turn down my graphics settings to low, and even then, I'm still getting mediocre frame rates. With that in mind, it is a simulator, and anyone who knows simulators will understand that any physics simulation will absolutely destroy any PC, no matter how powerful it is. Microsoft's Flight Simulator 2020 is no exception to this. Not only is it simulating the terrain on Earth, but it is also simulating wind, weather, temperature, humidity, altitude, and how your aircraft reacts to all of this. Before we get started, I want to quickly say that I'm currently live streaming on YouTube 24/7 until I reach 100,000 subs. I created this entire video while live, and I will continue creating future videos while live until I reach my goal. So if you're interested in seeing the process and want to support me along the way, hit the sub button and come say hi. I'm typically active from noon to midnight Eastern Standard Time. Microsoft's Flight Simulator 2020 is a 1-to-1 scale of our planet Earth. You can actually fly from one side of the world to the other, all in a single flight, and it would take you just as long as it would in real life to make that flight. With this in mind, you can also visit your own house in the simulator. Everything is incredibly accurate with some minor differences like building colors. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. A HOTAS is mandatory to fully enjoy Microsoft's Flight Simulator 2020. Sure, you can play on a controller and keyboard and mouse, and that's totally fine if you're just playing the simulator to enjoy the scenery and get up in the air. But if you want to enjoy the game for what it is, which is a flight simulator, then you absolutely need a HOTAS. A HOTAS is the minimum requirement for a flight simulator experience, and having VR will bring you into the world, and everything else is an added bonus to bring you that much closer to the real thing. Microsoft's Flight Simulator 2020 allows you to map virtually any control you'd need to your HOTAS. There are hundreds of controls which you can map out to control things like interior cockpit lights, toggling tail wheel lock, fuel tank selectors, anti-ice, various autopilot functions, ATC radio controls, and many more very specific controls which no keyboard can map out without the Control and Alt functions, let alone trying to map out all of these functions to a HOTAS. Fortunately, you don't need all of these mapped out, because you can either control these while in the cockpit of the plane itself using your mouse cursor, or you can simply set the simulator to an easier simulator setting so that you don't have to worry about many of these functions, such as having to communicate with air traffic control when taking off or landing. Game aspects. If you're new to flying like I was, then you'll definitely benefit from the in-game flight training which goes through the very basics of flight. It does a pretty good job at explaining how to fly the aircraft so you can soon take off, land, and control your plane so you could fly anywhere you desire. Microsoft's Flight Simulator 2020 allows you to fly with live time, traffic, and air traffic. This means if there's currently a storm in your city, then you will be flying in a storm over your city in the simulator. This also means you can sync up the time so you can fly during sunset and see the sun setting while flying in the sky. And this also means any airliner in the sky in real life, you can see flying in the simulator as well. This can all be turned off or on before your flight or seamlessly during your flight. It's absolutely amazing being able to transition your flight from midday to sunset or change weather patterns, all with a few clicks and sliders. You can also precisely control cloud layers and wind, so you can get the perfect scenery setting for your flight. In the menu, you have access to many different airplanes, and you can download more planes, airports, and locations, which provide you with a more accurate representation of the airport or city, and also gives you much better textures. You can also download user-created content as well, which will give you many more options. If you want a real challenge, you can complete all of the landing challenges they provide, which has you landing various aircraft across the world. For this review, I made it a goal to complete every landing challenge with a score of 1 million or higher, which definitely is no easy feat. That being said, it was an amazing experience, which has you landing at beautiful airports around the world, and I recommend it to everyone. Negative aspects. As you would imagine, Microsoft's Flight Simulator 2020 does not run well in VR, and struggles to maintain a stable frame rate even at the lowest graphic settings. While I am insanely impressed that we are able to get into VR and fly anywhere on Earth and have an absolutely incredible experience in VR, I can't help but feel disappointed that we are not at a point in time with our hardware technology where we can fly around at native resolution, high graphic settings, and a smooth 90 frames per second frame rate. Outside of needing a supercomputer to run the sim well, there are some other flaws, such as runways sometimes having bumps in the terrain, which can create issues when taking off and landing. I haven't ran into too many of these issues though, and it's still incredibly impressive being able to land at any airport in the world with the sim's auto-generated mapping system. Speaking of terrain bumps, there are definitely areas where there are these bumps and issues in the world. If you want to try to perform an emergency landing on a highway or a barren road, then you may have more trouble than you might have anticipated due to the terrain not being smooth. But again, most of the time you're not going to be landing on main roads, and when you're 5,000 feet above the ground, you don't even notice these flaws in the mapping system. And from that high up in the air, the world is absolutely breathtaking. Microsoft's Flight Simulator 2020 in VR is a groundbreaking experience. And if you're even slightly interested in VR, or just want to cruise around Earth, then you will not be disappointed. Just make sure you have a PC which is capable of running it, because it requires top-end hardware. While I am having an amazing time flying around in VR, I can't wait for hardware to catch up to the simulator's demands, because flying around at high-quality settings with high frame rates will make me never want to leave the cockpit. If you want to know what I'll be reviewing next, make sure you stop by my live stream, and you might see me working on it when you do. I'll be reviewing every game I play in VR, so if you enjoyed the video, subscribing is the best way to get more. Make sure to hit the bell to get notified as soon as I release new videos, and liking the video will show your appreciation. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And if you want to know what's on my mind, then follow me on Twitter. Links to everything are in the description down below. As always, make sure you think for yourself, which means question yourself. Do what makes you happy, and I'll see you all next time.